Jodi, how do we become Jesus-hearted women?
Well, that is the big question, right? That's the kind of the whole theme of the book. But I would say this to sum it up, because I can't give you a full book report right there, but I do believe that becoming a truly Jesus-hearted woman is the journey of a lifetime.
Thank you for joining us on Silently Bleeding, Hope for the Pastor's Wife. Today, our guest is Jodi Dietrich. Welcome, Jodi.
Oh, thank you, Jan. I'm so honored to be here. And I have to say, I'm a big Jan fan. And I know how much your life and your ministry has impacted my life. And I thank you. It's truly an honor to be with you today.
Oh, thank you, Jodi. Several years ago, you wrote a book called The Jesus-Hearted Woman. Wow, what an amazing, impactful book. It impacted my life. And I do want to say, Jodi, you are one of the most Jesus-hearted women I've ever met. And you love deeply. Your arms are always like this. At least that's been my experience.
Oh,
You welcomed me to the beautiful city of Seattle when I was there to visit my daughter, and you met with me and Bethany for coffee, and you didn't even really know us, but you took time with us and just loved on us. So thank you for being that Jesus-hearted woman. So I want to ask you, how did you come up with writing this amazing book?
well, if we had the time and could travel today, I could take you to the city of Springfield, Missouri, and the building of the seminary and the very classroom where I was sitting. And that day we had a particular guest lecturer, and he said somebody needs to write a new book for women in leadership. And I don't know if it showed on my face or not, but my heart was beating wildly with what I can only describe as a sense of calling. And I remember at the break, I went up to my beloved godly professor, Dr. Carolyn Tennant, and I said, Dr. Tennant, I think I might be that somebody. And she said, Jodi, I was thinking the same thing. And so the die was cast. And after that, so many of the things that I had been learning on my academic journey, combined with prior years of ministry experience and what I was learning in the Word and in talking with other people, began to come together and take shape in the form of that new book, The Jesus-Hearted Woman: 10 Leadership Qualities for Enduring and Endearing Influence. And Jan, as I wrote, these are the questions that I kept as my focus. What are those primary Jesus-hearted qualities that will serve a woman well and help her to serve well for the long haul? And how can she avoid some of the pitfalls and make best use of the opportunities for influence that God has given her? And I just want to say here, when I say leadership, I'm talking about influence. It doesn't matter if it comes with a particular role or title or a paycheck. We all have spheres of influence that God has given us. And so ministry life can be hard, as you well know. And so, how can she endure, but in an endearing way? And the word endearing means to inspire love and affection, to be lovable, to tending to be dear and beloved. And so I think that at the end of the road, it's not just about what we've accomplished, but who we've become along the way and the imprint that we leave on the souls that we touch. And so I actually have kind of a motto for my life that I've included on the signature line of my emails. And it's a question that I ask myself: who do you want to be after all that you have to do is done? Who do you want to be after all that you have to do is done? And I want to be a Jesus-hearted woman. And so that kind of was the beginning of the book. And I've come to believe that if you have the heart, you can learn the skills when it comes to leadership or anything that God calls you to. Every area of influence requires a different set of practical skills. Jan, you had to learn how to do a podcast and how to do a lot of technical things. And so you learn those. But but most importantly, you have the heart, the Jesus heart. And your I just want to insert here that silently bleeding is a tool of God to help women endure and to make it through so many hard things and to become endearing women of God. So thank you for this wonderful ministry, for sure.
Thank you. So, Jodi, you're such a gifted author. One of my favorite quotes in this particular book, and I want to read it because I don't want to say it wrong, is phoniness in leadership is a little like using plastic lipstick. You can apply it all you want, but it's, in a sense, if it's not real, nothing changes. What
Mm.
is one of your favorite quotes from the book?
Asking a writer to choose a favorite quote is a little bit like asking a mom to choose a favorite kid. But I do have some favorites, and so here's one of them from the book. No matter what comes into your field of vision today, the most priceless thing you will see is always the next face before you. And I think in many ways that captures the heart of Jesus so well, doesn't it? I mean, he lived this interruptible life, and he always saw each person he met as someone of eternal worth and inestimable value. And so, by the way, the context for that quote that I just gave you was I was in a shopping mall and I was rushing around trying to buy someone a gift, and I got irritated because there were so many people at the mall that day, and it was so crowded, and I was just kind of, frustrated and looking for, that next shiny thing. And I was really convicted by the Spirit that, the most priceless thing in this mall are these people, that no matter how many beautiful things are here and things that we want to get or give to others, it's the people that are always the most priceless thing in any situation. And to remember that really changes everything for me.
Oh, that's so good. So, growing up, who was the most Jesus hearted woman that influenced your life, Jodi?
Well, that's easy. It was my mother, Louise Dunlap. She was the original Jesus hearted woman in my life. And she just loved people. She loved Jesus. She loved the Word of God. She was a pastor's wife. And also a credentialed woman in ministry herself. Today, she's 92 years old. She lives in another state, but we talk often. And every time I talk, Jan, she tells me about the latest book she's just read. She still loves reading, and she said, when I can't get out and do the things that I used to do, but when anyone comes through my door, I tell them, when you come through my door, you're on my prayer list. And so she's just a precious woman of God. And is it okay to tell you a little story about her,
Sure.
Jan?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I've just seen her become sweeter as the years go by. Some people tend to get harder and more bitter, especially if they've been through hard things. And she really has been through some really difficult things, family wise, health wise. Excuse me, my dad's health issues and depression, things like that, that really impacted her life. And she was telling me about how one night she had had a really rough night. She hadn't been able to sleep well, and she'd just been tossing and turning and in pain. And she said, and then I just started looking back over our life and my ministry with your dad, and all the people that we saw come to Jesus, and all the lives that were changed, and all the prayers that have been answered. And she said, and I just had to get out of bed and dance.
Oh, I love that.
Oh my goodness. And I thought, oh my goodness, I want to be you when I grow up, for sure. And I think that if we can live that kind of life where, no matter what else is going on, we just look at God's goodness and we just have to get out of bed and dance.
So, Jodi, can you think of a Jesus hearted woman that influenced you in your young years as a pastor's wife? Someone besides your precious mom.
Is a lady named Terry Myers. She was my pastor's wife when my husband and I were on staff with her and her husband, who were the senior pastors at the church where we served. And I was just, my goodness, just barely in my 20s and just so young and, wanting to love and serve Jesus. And I saw just a consistency in Terry. And one of the things that really just stood out to me was her prayer life. She was a woman of prayer, and I felt like, even though I loved the Lord and I kind of came into full faith. I mean, I was born into this godly Christian family, and so grew up in faith and in the church, but into full faith in the 70s and the Jesus movement, the Jesus revolution. But I felt like I needed to learn how to pray. And I remember asking Terry just kind of hesitantly, and Terry, do you think you could help me learn how to be a better prayer person, a prayer warrior? And she said, oh, for sure. And so she invited me to her home. I think it was like at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not a morning person. She lived a few blocks from my house, and I would get up early and pull on some clothes and head to Terry's, and we would just get down. And she didn't really have a curriculum or tell me you need to do it this way. We just prayed together, and we just poured out our hearts together. And she just showed me how precious the presence of Jesus was, and that it was accessible, and that I didn't have to do it in a fancy way or have all the right words or have it all figured out. I just needed to come. And she just impacted me so deeply in that way. And plus, she was just a lovely, classy lady who just always showed up and loved others. And so, yeah, Terry was definitely a big impact on my life. And Terry, if you ever hear this, I'm so thankful for you. Love you.
You've been so blessed to have an amazing mom and a mentor and the pastor's wife that you worked with. That is beautiful. Jodi, how do we become Jesus-hearted women?
Well, that is the big question, right? That's the kind of the whole theme of the book. But I would say this to sum it up, because I can't give you a full book report right there, but I do believe that becoming a truly Jesus-hearted woman is the journey of a lifetime. And it's also the journey of every ordinary day as we make choices and as we lean into Jesus in all of the ups and downs of life. And I would just say, don't be discouraged by all the stops and starts and restarts along the way, the potholes and detours. I think that we just keep following him. We just keep spending time with him. We become like those that we spend time with and those that we focus on. You've seen it happen, I'm sure, where a couple who have been married for many, many years begin to take on each other's characteristics, and just there's just a likeness that grows and that forms. And so as we savor the presence of Jesus and we keep going back to him when we mess up, when we lean into him, and when we intentionally spend time with him, focus on him despite what else is going on in the world, that's, I think, how we become Jesus-hearted women. It's a long journey, though. It's not just, oh, today this is what I'm going to do and be. So
it's a process, right?
It is, yeah. And one of the things that I often, again, I'm a word person, so I love these little quotes that I kind of have come up with that I tell myself. And one of them is face yourself and then grace yourself. And so I think that's really important along the way. We have to face ourselves. We have to be honest about where we are in life, where we're missing the mark, because I'm still missing the mark in many ways. And yet then we need to grace ourselves the way that Jesus did. Sometimes I think that the way we treat ourselves is not how we would treat any other person in the world. Learn to be an inner coach instead of an inner critic, and we would not tell our friend who messed up, you're just worthless and you'll never get this right and you should just quit. But those conversations can happen in our heads, and we have to resist leaning into that. We face ourselves honestly in the presence of Jesus, and then we grace ourselves with the grace that he gives us, and we know that tomorrow is a new start. And even today, in the middle of the day, I think that God, we don't have to wait till tomorrow to get a fresh start when we get a dirty, rotten attitude, or when things go in a way that we know that they shouldn't. And so, but yeah, we stay on that journey. We stay on that road. It's a long road, but it's taking us somewhere important, and it's changing us in the process. And again, it's not just what we're accomplishing, but it's who we're becoming along the way. It's so important.
Yes, I fully agree. Thank you. How does being a Jesus-hearted woman affect our ministry and our marriage?
Well, you're talking about places where the rubber meets the road, where we really can't fake it. I suppose that we can try to make ourselves look one way to those on the outside, but especially I would say in our marriage and in our homes, um, it's so important, because if your husband and your kids can't find the heart of Jesus beating in you, well, then no one else probably can either. And so and that doesn't mean that family life is not hard and messy, and we get it wrong sometimes, and disappointments and conflicts and disasters hit us just the way they do anyone else. And sometimes I think even more, because I think we're targets for the enemy. But all of those qualities that I talk about in the book, like authenticity, humility, stamina, resilience, courage, self-awareness, kindness, all of those things that allow us to become enduring and endearing leaders in other settings, also help us to become enduring and endearing wives and mamas and sisters and friends and pastors' wives. And so again, remember that definition of endearing is to inspire love and affection. And so yes, being a Jesus-hearted woman is who we become every day. It's not something that we put on for Sunday, or for going to speak at some function, or when we're behind a podium. It's the real stuff of life. And if it doesn't work there, then it doesn't work anywhere. Phoniness in our lives is the same way. We can try hard, and we can pull out some tools and try to make ourselves look at a certain way, but it really doesn't change anything. And this is a heart thing, Jan. This is something that has to come out of the heart of Jesus living in our hearts. And but it is so practical. This isn't just some super spiritual stuff that is something that we put on as a persona for certain crowds and certain situations. It becomes the real stuff of life of every day. And so
Is your book still available, and how do women get it?
you can go to my website, which is www.jodidietrick. It's JODIDETRICK.com. And if you want a shortcut, just go to Amazon and you can find it on there for sure. It's in English, of course, but it's also in Spanish, and it's in Portuguese. And I can't tell you how humbled and honored I am to hear from people around the globe who are using the book for personal study, but also for group study, for Bible studies, for mentoring someone. It's being used in college and seminary classes. It's being used with military wives groups. It's been used just in leadership settings, by the way, that involve men too. And so one of the pushbacks that I've gotten, probably more than anything, is that, why did you make this about women? Because this is really for everyone. It's leadership qualities that apply to everyone. But I really did want it to be focused towards women, because I think a lot of times women, we don't as easily self-identify as leaders as easily as men do. And so I was afraid that if it just was the Jesus-hearted person or whatever, that a lot of women would think, that's not for me, because I don't have an official role or title or position. And yet God is stirring something in them, and they want their lives to count, and they want to use the lives that they've been given. And I think that's the heart of Jesus beating in them. And so I want them to be equipped to, wherever they're at, to just be courageous and to live into the influence that God has given them, to steward that well. So that was a long answer for a short question, but yeah, the book is out there and it's available, and would love for women to check it out if they think it could be helpful.
Well, I can tell you, I absolutely highly recommend the book. And I'm so glad that it's still available. I will leave a link where ladies can find it. We'll also leave your website down below where people
Perfect.
can find you. And so that's pretty exciting. And maybe book 2 needs to come out, How to Become Jesus Hearted.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, I actually did, and I've talked about this, but my book 2 was The Settled Soul, and it's about how do we settle our souls into Jesus in a very unsettled world. It's kind of a deep dive into John 15, so that's available as well. But yeah, there's those are available, and I always feel I kind of resist self-promotion and that whole thing of trying to be a big salesperson. That's just not who I am. And yet I believe that this is the tool that I get to leave behind when I go and speak, or when I share with someone, to help others grow strong in the Lord and in their influence. And so if this can be a helpful tool for someone and encourage them to keep pressing forward as Jesus-hearted women, then I'm very happy about that, Jan.
Well, that is amazing. So thank you so much, Jodi. Just in closing, for that precious lady that's listening right now, and she's thinking, I didn't have a mentor or a mother to really be that example to me, what word of encouragement do you have for her?
Well, I think a lot of women find themselves in that category, Jan. And, I would say, if they sense this desire, I think that is something that the Lord focuses on, that God sees that desire, and that your desire can start a fire that the Spirit tends and fans into flame. So go to God with that honest desire. And then think about some of the women who display Jesus-hearted characteristics. And they don't have to be perfect or have it all together, because none of us do, but you can truly see Jesus in their lives. And so offer to buy them coffee and come with 3 questions that are on your heart, and ask them to tell you their faith story, and what do they do when they get knocked down, or when this hard thing happens. And don't just get discouraged if that coffee date doesn't work out the first time. Ask if a phone call might be better, if it would be better down the road, or maybe there's another lady that you can approach about that. And but I want to add one more thing. And to some of those who hear this, that might be too daunting to begin with, to approach someone and ask them about maybe being mentored, as we like to call it. But I would say this, that throughout my life, I have been mentored through books. And honestly, by reading hard-earned words of wisdom from godly women who pour out the things that they've learned. So start there. And I'm not just talking about my book. There are so many wonderful books out there by incredible women of God down through the centuries. And so but start there, but bring that desire to God, and then pursue it. Jan, I'm at a point in my life where I've stepped aside from some of the official roles and titles that I had for a while, and that's just fine with me. And I am more in a position of being Mama Jodi to a lot of younger women in ministry. And I love talking with them. A lot of them are scattered across this country, and we talk by phone, and they know that I'm a safe place, and I will listen to them and pray with them. And I think that the older I get, I truly relish that role. But there are a lot of women like me out there who, and they may not have written a book, but they have tons of wisdom and so many amazing things that they have to teach you, more than I do, and they would love to pour into your life, and are so sometimes we're waiting to be asked, and sometimes we're waiting to ask. So I take the initiative and just pursue that, and see where the Lord takes that.
That's good. Yeah, there are so many great books. I know I've told people Joyce Meyer is one of my
Yeah,
mentors. She
sure.
doesn't know me, but I know
That's
her.
right. That's right. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
your books have powerfully impacted my life and just so many others. And if somebody says, but I'm not a reader, you know what, Jodi, I used to hate to read. And I asked the Lord to give me a passion for reading. And now one of the young ladies that calls me Mama Jan, that's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
We have that in common.
Yes.
He's like, oh my word, Mama Jan, you're just reading all the time now. What
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
And I said, I prayed and I asked God, God, give me that passion. And
Mm.
he has. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so sweet woman of God, if you're thinking, but I don't like to read or I don't even have time to read, then maybe listen, get the
Yes.
audible and listen to it. There's always a way. So thank
Yes.
you, Jodi. Thank you, sweet woman of God, for joining us today.
Mm. Mm.
And we just pray that God will bless you and we'll see you again. Thank you for watching Silently Bleeding, Finding Hope for the Pastor's Wife. I look forward to connecting with you. Feel free to leave me comments down below and make sure and subscribe. If you want to know every time a new video is coming out, hit the bell. I would be so delighted if you would also hit the like button and feel free to share this video with anyone you know that this would encourage. Blessings, my friends.